I imagine, but welcome to for those of you who have not participated of Master Gardener. This is Master Naturalist, and so tonight we are going to see our students present a capstone project. Part of the curriculum is through process, and we're just looking at ourselves on here. And part of that process is everybody is doing a project that will somehow benefit either the Conservancy or their own work as a naturalist. And what I'd like everybody to bear in mind about this is the fact that this is a 5-week course, and so many of these people have only had about a week and a half to work on their projects. So these are works in progress. So this is sharing the beginning of something that will continue beyond the end of this class and hopefully for many years to come. So this is, you're just seeing that kernel, that's the beginning of something much bigger here this evening. So what we're going to do is try to keep time sharp, and I have a couple of warnings, 5 and 2 minutes. We're going to try to keep 10 minutes apiece. When you're talking, please try to keep your chin up and be looking towards the back of the room, and I'll flash you a 5 or I'll flash you a 2 when things are starting to run out. Alrighty?
What if you faint?
What if I faint?
Yeah.
Well, then you're taking over. You're picking me up and walking me back to my car, Mr. Bummer. So I'd like to. We're going to begin this evening with. They are residents of Minot, California, and they did a project. They were looking at some of the springs on Tejon Ranch, of which we have very many. So is this going to? Just make sure this works. Yeah, it looks like it. That's your blank screen.
Okay, do you want to watch mine first?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do this down screen.
Okay.
Let's see, is it doing it for us?
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Yes. This actually does kind of point to our house. We live right there. That's where Minot is. It's right, and really directly is just east of. We're very interested in the springs. We're the first time. They took and showed it to us. We just thought this is really kind of fell in love with it. And my background is in chemistry, and her background is mathematics and teaching special ed kids. And I taught chemistry for many years, so we were kind of interested in what's going on with this. We were interested in some of the physical measurements. How do these springs change over time? And Michelle, our colleague, who's still on the road right now, Mission Viejo or something like that, is interested in what grows there. So we're going to do a little bit of that. Okay, go ahead. So what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about what springs really are, because I don't know 100% about them yet. I'm 5 weekends ahead of the rest of you. So what actually is a spring? If you see water coming out, that's a legal definition. I found 5 or 10 different definitions in the literature. Commonly along a hill or maybe at the bottom of a major valley, but somehow you have to have some water trapped that can come out. One of the definitions I saw is when the water table intersects the surface, and I kind of like that too for a straight definition. We tend to see the ones that we've seen on the Tehachapi side, on our side, on the Antelope Valley side, they have tended to be on hills. And as we're noticing more and more, as we're looking at it, we're seeing something you'll see on the slide when I get to it next. I heard the word artesian well is under pressure, so that you don't really have to pump it out. And I'll show you those. But I really like this down here. We see all these cracks in rocks, and I thought as a chemist what the groundwater was doing was actually soaking into the rocks and hydrating the rock. And that does occur to a certain extent. But there's also tons of porous areas in that. And so a combination of the wicking action you would see, when water crawls up a straw, but it won't crawl up a plastic straw, it will crawl up a paper straw, due to this wicking effect that water can do. And so it'll go into these areas. And of course, if a tree can get all the way down in here where it's totally saturated, it's got all the water it needs. So sometimes when you see a big tree out there, interesting. We can go into more and more of this. So this just gives you a rough idea. Notice how if this is this water table, if it were to be straight, it isn't exactly the same level as the sea level. That always kind of bothered me too. So what's drawing it up? That wicking, and the fact that some water comes in and fills in some of these holes. So that means there's a net tendency for the water to move back down to sea level over time. Well, if it intersects the surface, it can come out and form a spring. Go ahead. Thanks. This one's a little better. First of all, I learned a new word, aquaflume, during the course. So they didn't use those words. If I have an aquifer here that has an aquaclude, which is just like preclude to take it away, to preclude water from getting through here, I've got all that gravity, so I've got water here under pressure. So if I tap that, if this drill were to come underneath, then I could have that water pump. Or above it, if I have an aquafluid here that stops everything, what's the water going to do? As water lands out here and goes to fall down via precipitation, if it comes down, it can make it in a matter of days in some parts of the country from rain to the spring. So you can imagine, especially back east, where when the water comes down and a couple days later they're drinking that, what about all the pollution that's here? So some of their water, so these ones down here that have been confined for centuries or even millennia, these ones here are going to, in some ways, be a lot safer, a lot cleaner. So this just kind of shows, and of course where we live, precipitation is pretty rare, so the rate is not days and years, but that's something we want to see over the next few years. How quickly do these things respond to storms, because we live fairly close, or to wetter years? What's the nature of these changes? Go ahead. Just a neat little visual. I had no idea how much there was groundwater. There's roughly, what, 30 times as much groundwater as there is all the lakes, and roughly 300 times as much groundwater as there is all the creeks, which I thought was, I had no idea there was that much groundwater. So I mean, I'm really just telling you what I learned recently. Gives a little better picture, even though it's from Florida. You can again see the idea what these cracks in the rocks are going to do. As water falls down, it can come out via a spring. And so it isn't so much that it's soaking into the rock as that it's going through all the porosity in the rock, all the porousness, all the holes. And that's what we saw when we were out in the field, that you'll see in a couple of minutes, or at least it does. Here's one spot right there. So if you can, as you're out there, you can see so many of these with all that porousness, and you'll see them sometimes, and you can even imagine that under the ground and how much water can pour through it. Now, of course, there's still a lot of chemistry going on. As they're going through, they are absorbing different ions. And what are those ions behind them? That shows some of those salt lakes that we see. Go ahead. This is one of the ones that we first did. Can you see all the rocks above? We noticed that one of the springs, we were having one in a couple so far. The rocks above, and again, the whole mountain inside of that visually, and then down to this level here, once we saw the spring come out, we saw almost no rocks. So that, I guess, a good hypothesis, like a citizen scientist would do, a good hypothesis would be perhaps we are seeing the water coming, making its way out through all that porosity, and that would be interesting as I learn more about the geology of the area. This is a growing process. What really is going on here? What's the, is there more clay to soil here where the water can pass through as easily? Go ahead. This is my last slide. Okay. So what we wanted, there was a slide, there was a great review. They had an intern a couple of years ago, and the intern did an amazing amount of data that we're just now looking at. So we want to review theirs and continue that great work. Plus we want to learn more, why do the reasons, like the geology behind it, where are the springs where they are, and then, like I say, how does it vary season to season, how does it vary year to year, and then as we're going out there, we can sure see all the damage. We can sure see that, and as they're making these wonderful mitigation efforts, how can our work help inform them? Are we still seeing the big damage in one spot all the time? Is it getting worse? Are there more of those head cuts, I think is the word I'm still learning? Are there more head cuts out there? Are they moving up the hill? These are damage that they want to know. Establish baseline.
So what we did when we went out there the first time is you have to take a picture before you can walk up to the stream. So of course we went to the head of the stream where we just walked up, stopped pointing, said the head's probably up there. So we walked up there to the head and took a picture before we got real close because we didn't want to disturb anything. We wanted to see what it looked like. So once we got a couple pictures, we had a meter tape, meter stick, couple meter tapes, meter sticks. I chose to stay dry, so I stayed at the top. While Scott and Richard both went. Scott went with the tape, and then Richard went after. And every 12 meters, you have to measure how high, where the tape is, how high is the shrubs, grass, whatever's growing there, and then is there any obvious disturbance? And if there's disturbance, we took pictures of it. So we took lots of pictures of different disturbances we saw because we want to document, are they going to be there the next time we look at the stream? We also learned about the UTM location stuff. It made us go out and buy a new GPS thing. So now it's got us on a whole other project for doing.
Just to clarify, we did not make them.
No, yeah, because we went and did it on our own because we wanted one that told us the UTM locations. Because we wanted, as we're hiking and stuff on our own, we're starting to look at nature differently. We've always looked at it. Now we're looking at it with new eyes and trying to identify stuff. So that's what.
Click.
Click. Okay, so this is just an example of, and I don't know how we ended up with it, but here's the meter tape going here, and here's the meter tape going across. So we measured right here, okay? And that and at this same spot, you can see there's indents in the brush and stuff. Well, there's cow droppings around. So we knew it had to be by a cow, not a pig, because pigs make a big mess of the area and stuff, as we saw last weekend and stuff. Okay, good.
Click. Takes a little time to respond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is just a picture of Richard doing it again, taking his jogging through the creek. And this was a flowing stream. So the stream came out, and it had enough water, and it's at the top of the hill, so it's still flowing down the canyon. So he's in the middle of the water, and there's the porous rocks he's talking about, but that was the only ones we saw after we got him from the top. Go ahead, click.
It's a second.
Yeah. Okay, this is a piece of the correlated sheet metal that goes on the ribs of things, and this particular one is laying in the stream. And it doesn't have too much on it, but in another spot in the stream, there was a piece of corrugated metal that a bunch of dirt had, floated into it. Grass was growing into it, and who knows what kind of animals are living under it, and who knows what kind of animals are living on top, because we couldn't see them. There were a lot of frogs, both
Tree frog.
tree frog, and what was the green one?
I think we had a western toad,
Okay.
and the Baja California tree frog.
That was the
Yeah,
one.
those are the ones we saw, and they're real tiny, and they were just hundreds of them. Go ahead and click.
And then how are these going to change over time, these human disturbances?
And this is when because you can see where the water is. And this is north of the pond that we went to the first day of class. This was all in the marsh and stuff there, but the water is still flowing through. Okay, go ahead and click.
Okay.
But it was a real fun day. Now, that was the first creek, the first stream in the spring we went to. Then we went to find another one, and Scott had his iPad and it had dots where a spring is supposed to be. So we hiked down this real steep cliff, which you'll see in a little bit. Oh, well, we're parked at the top of that hill. So for me, it was a steep hike. And when we get there, according to the UTM, it didn't match where we found a seep, which it was only about this big, had a little bit of water in it, was not running or anything. So the two guys decided, well, we need to see, is this the spring we're supposed to be measuring, or is there another one? So they actually went to where the UTM location said there was a spring, and there was nothing there. But we did have two of them where we were. This shows the head cut, and this is the same picture as that. This shows where the seep is. This is this area is here.
Maybe this big, was it?
Water. It was only about this big.
Yeah,
it was real small.
Half a meter.
But you can tell, see how all the ground looks all messed up here? At one time, there had to be a lot of water there, and it had to be pigs because of the way they messed up all the dirt and stuff. So the pigs did wallow here, but in time, through the summer and stuff, it has all of that dried up except for that little seed. Go ahead. And I think that this next slide. Oh, we had a little friend join us on, and he stayed with us for about 2 hours. And as we were leaving, he actually came back to the spring, to where the spring was, and he started to eat some of the grass. And Scott couldn't tell which part of the grass he was eating, but you can tell he was going there. To me, he looked kind of sick and stuff because, I mean, it was a hot day, and he was kind of lethargic as he's walking. Go ahead, play.
There it comes.
Okay, this is us coming.
That's Scott coming back up.
So
That's
we're
like-
still at the top of the hill here. He's still got a ways to go. These trees are just south of where we were. So the spring was above it, and then around the corner here was another spring that we came across. This time it was big enough. It's almost like the pig, when he was making his wallow, he made a bathtub because it was in a huge area. A lot around. It was first string where it's going down. And for us, that's what we want to do, is see, are these springs flowing all the time? And if not, what's stopping them? Like, is it because they're the intermittent spring and stuff? So that's what's interesting us. Go ahead and
That's
click.
it.
That's it.
And is the does that tree ever get any water flowing too? Do these springs ever actually turn into streams? You don't know.
Yeah. So we're going to have fun. All the springs on the Antelope Valley side of the Tejon piece are the ones we're going to, you know, in the next couple months and stuff, try to get out there before the rains come so we can measure them now, because we want to go back after the rains come and measure again. And because that's interesting. That's the only problem is we have to meet with Scott because I was going to start to input our data, and it's like, wait a minute, I got to figure out how he wants it to look, because I had pages and pages. Because every 12 feet, when he took the measurement, I had to write it down. So I wrote the width of the spring down, and I wrote how high the chaparral was. And if there was a picture that needed to be taken, we took the picture and we documented what number the picture is so we can put the 2 and 2 together. So it's just a matter of seeing, because if I was doing it, I'd do it completely different than the stuff Scott sent us. Because I teach in special ed, when I look at stuff, I look at it, can my students, were they able to, and tell, but I want it to be to where the work we did, and you'd understand what we did, and that's where all of this is going to take a lot of time, because it's going to be time consuming to input.
And if we can get them all in a nice big spreadsheet, we can do a lot of correlation work and a lot of statistical work. Are these related? What's related to everything? So we want to get Michelle hopefully in the same data set, and then we can do some big data stuff they always talk about.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
That's it. All right.
Very nice. Thank you, Richard and Lisa.
Let's see, what else? Who was next? Ed, are you good to go at 6:50? Okay, cool. So we got Chuck up next, Chuck Noble. He's a local resident of Lebec, and he's been volunteering with the Conservancy for a number of years now, and we're really happy that he decided to join us in this class. And as a retired photographer, he's helping us out with some historic photographs. So we really appreciate Chuck's work. Let me close this. Do the screen share. Yeah, we want PowerPoint. Alrighty. Take it away,
Okay.
Chuck.
Just to, a quick introduction, I live here in Lebec, about 2 miles from the Conservancy, so I probably get called more than some of the other docents, because if they need somebody, I'm only 5 minutes away. I've been, like Scott said, I've been working as a docent for several years. I'm a retired aerospace corporate photographer for over 45 years, and I've done scads of restorations and stuff even for museums and things, so I have the experience in what they need done here. Presently, I do wildlife and landscape photos, and I restore my old Chevy, which is a lot of fun. See which one of these buttons is working on strategy. And I was speaking to was in there, and she asked me if I knew anybody that could scan old photos or slides, and which they turned out not to be slides, but they're black and white negatives. And I said, yeah, I can do that. Equipment on the ranch, and we have several in areas taken around the ranch that McMillan shot. That was a botanical survey, so we're also going to scan those because they have some importance too for things like wind wolves and some of those areas. There's pictures in there. So this is kind of what we started to do, and there are just 4 examples of some of the shots that I scanned off of negatives. And our goal, here's one just a quick shot of my my studio. I've got a scanner here. I've got a light box. I'm not showing. Here's some pictures on the screen. And blowing up go out and find that location and take a present picture of it. And how this, whoops, where'd I go? Which one goes back here?
The left arrow.
Okay. I'm not much good without a mouse because I don't have feeling in my fingers. I put something on that laptop. Images, they can see caused by grazing and wild hogs as well as invasive plants. It better allows them to evaluate and plan for policies and protections for the long-term good of the ranch. As well as scanning and digitizing the old negatives, I am researching local libraries and museums for images that can be added to the collection. And I've just today got notice from our local Ridge Route Museum. They have tons of old photos from Tejon. And Beale Library has some of the real old ones. Most of them are in that book you gave me that they have. They've only got like a dozen or so photos that are anything that we can use. In addition to the ranch images, like I said, there are hundreds of images in the surrounding area that we want to scan and digitize. And this is helpful to me as a docent as well, because as I lead and guide hikes on the ranch, I can better communicate with some of the clientele because I'm learning all kinds of things about different areas of the ranch. And so it's been very helpful. This is one at the particular canyon here. This is one of the photos that we scanned. And you can notice all the vegetation here and stuff. And now we've got it's taken from a little further away, and I think this vegetation here was probably right around in here someplace. It looks like, looking at the photo, it was taken at just a little bit closer angle, but you can tell it's been grazed way down. Even with the vegetation around here, it's pretty good. There's nothing there. It's just down to the ground, so you can tell it's been overgrazed. And that's one of the things they're looking into. Okay, this is the Joshua forest that burned in the 1960s, and some of you who've been on tours have seen the Joshua trees, and they're pretty hardy. And right now, this is what they look like. And a little bit of rain and a little bit of time, they'll come up from the roots, and they'll regenerate themselves. So this is just a comparison of some of the areas that I've been able to get out to the ranch on. And some of you have seen this. You can notice the vegetation, a little bit here. It hasn't changed much. Even there's not much noticeable damage on the rock as far as the petrographs. but you notice there's more vegetation here, all through here. That's a young oak tree coming up, another young oak tree over here. So there's been some changes.
How far on the ranch did you go into?
That's in about a couple miles on the other side of the ranch. Okay. Okay, this is from Highway 123 east of Arvin, looking west. This is a photo that we scanned right on Highway 123. Many of you have been up there, you've seen that big graffiti rock they've got there. And this is just about 25 feet south of that. You shoot back west and this is what you see, and here's what it looks like today. And you can notice the difference in the vegetation and stuff here. It's been grazed down quite a bit. This is the ostrich farm. This is a road down by the Denny's at the bottom of the hill. You take the road up there and go towards the pumping station. That's a picture of the head of the old ostrich farm. I drove down there a couple days ago. And here's what it looks like today. And you notice the dead tree here is still there. And this tree right here, it's now dead. So, and that's pretty much it. Anybody have any quick questions? We got about a minute or two left. Okay, thanks, Chuck. All right.
Thank you very much, Chuck. So, you know, these historical photo exercises and finding historical references are really pretty important for us because we don't really have a lot of information about what this place used to look like. We talk about, you know, part of our mission is to restore this area, but how can you do restoration if you don't know what your investigations are really helping? How we should be managing this place as it would have been 150 or 200 years ago or whatever it is. That's a whole nother question, is how long ago or do you want to restore to? Francis?
Does this mean that those areas will never be touched, built on or anything, just kept as is?
Well, they're part of the conserved land, so no, they aren't in any development footprint. But, you know, if I wouldn't say that they aren't touched. If we determine that, you know, historically they looked X way and there was some certain management there that we aren't doing today, we might try to go back and do that management to get it to where it used to be. So the computer just froze. There we go. The buzzard made it freeze. All right. And do y'all have a stick here? Get that going.
How does this work? I don't. It's kind of high
Forward, backward, laser.
Oh, okay. Forward, backward, laser. Okay.
So we have Carrie Lattimore and Young Chu, and what they did was help us with some of our weed management. So there are over 36 species of non-native plants, so plants from other than Tejon Ranch that are now invading Tejon Ranch, and we really want to get a handle on managing them so that they don't take over and reduce native habitat. So Carrie and Young came out and they helped us map some of these. They will out over. Take it away.
Okay. Weed management.
Again. There was a little lag.
Here we go. Okay. What is a weed? Okay. What is a weed? Okay. The term weed means a lot of things to different people. Okay. In the broadest sense, it's any plant growing where you don't want it to grow. Okay. Legally, a noxious weed is any plant designated by a federal, state, or county government as injurious to public health, agriculture, recreation, wildlife, or property. The Bureau of Land Management considers plants invasive if they have been introduced into an environment where they did not evolve. And of course, as a result, they often don't have any natural enemies, and so there's no limit to their reproduction and their spread. And so we get a lot of weeds, and we don't want them. Oh, now it's coming out. Oh, this is kind of slow. Okay. Okay, this is a large-scale map of the ranch, and where we did our work was up here along this 223, up in this area, in the far, in the head of the turkey up here. Okay, no one has time to weed their yards, of course. That's why we all, no, that's why few of us might still use one. Okay, so anyway, so imagine weeding the Conservancy. It's got 430 square miles and 2,000 miles of roads. So anyways, that's where our project was. Okay, so oh, I see, okay. Okay, there are 14 weeds that the Conservancy has we've kind of prioritized as things that we want to monitor and kind of follow to see if they're spreading and find out where they occur, and hopefully we can remove some of them. And the one that we studied is the puncture vine, Tribulus terrestris. And even though we have just a small area, don't think that that's the only place. In fact, I can guarantee you it's not the only place that it's found. Okay, next. Okay, this plant, you all know this plant. Yeah, I mean, these are the vectors. I mean, how does it spread? It sticks to your socks, it sticks to your shoes, it sticks to tires. And it's really a bad plant, on the ranch because animals, if they get that in their feet, they can get abscess. I mean, it's a real problem. If they eat it, it will damage their mouth, it'll get their, digestive tract. It's, people in orchards don't like them for obvious reasons. If they get into a place that's growing hay, it will destroy the hay crop. So, okay, now, I have to say this. Puncture vine originated in Africa and Asia Minor, and it was first documented in California in 1903. Now I have a riddle for you. What do you get when you cross a bicycle with Tribulus terrestris? Very good. Very good. Okay.
I'll do this.
Okay. This is the slide of the plant. The invasive noxious weed puncture vine is in the Zygophalaceae, or the caltrop family. That's the same family that you find creosote in, common California native. Okay, it's an annual plant. It's typically found in dry, sunny, disturbed areas. It forms a mat of up to 10 feet in diameter with reddish stems. And it radiates. Okay. It radiates from a central point, and it has a very deep taproot that goes down under here, which of course helps it to compete against other plants. When you look at the plant, I mean, the first things that you see, it has leaves are about a ½ inch long, and there's like 4 to 8 pairs, you can see this, of leaflets. So it's a pinnately divided leaf. And it has reddish stems. When you're out, see those flowers, it's real easy to distinguish. The flowers are usually found from March to October. Well, okay, now this is the one we love the most, the goat-head. This is also called. It's a bird, and it's about a tour. Breaks up into 3 bits, and there's 2 long spikes and then a whole bunch of smaller spikes. And when these break open, there's 5 to 7 seeds inside. There's 5 to 7 seeds inside, and they can last up to 7 years. Let me see. Anyway, I got another joke. I have to tell this fast. Okay, so she's driving along Highway 101. She gets in a car accident, and so, or not car accident. She has a flat tire. She runs over one of these things. Okay, so she puts her bike to the side, and the cars are whizzing by. It's really awful. So she gets out her little toolkit, and she has these little self-inflating deals that she puts up, and they're naked men. And of course, immediately the traffic slows down, and everyone's laughing, taking pictures, and it's, so there's now all these cars busy by. But just as she's getting done, highway patrol drives up and he goes, "What's going on? This is this obscenity." "Well, these are my emergency flashers." Whoa. You're out the field. You're out the field. Bright green. There's a lot of low-lying things. This area we were in, there are like no trees. It's just flat, dry, real dusty. And this is found all along the road. It's very dry. It's like some, I think they used to be in the training family. Anyway, there's a bunch of different plants that are low-lying. But this is like bright. It's just a bright emerald green color. And it has these yellow flowers, so you can't miss it.
At what point do the birds begin?
Well,
Because
that
I've
was
seen
something,
them in
when we
bulldozers.
look at each of these infestations, we look at them, and the birds, they develop pretty fast. I think within like 3 weeks of it spreading, in March, you start getting flowers, and then the birds, and there were birds on them. There were flowers and birds.
Usually about 3 weeks to flower and 6 weeks before the birds are fully developed, I think.
So first,
Pretty
second.
early.
Yeah.
By April, May. Okay. We have to do is reconnaissance on White Wolf Road. It's a dirt road, and we found infestations along here. I think there was one here, one here, one here, and one here. And so then we, after we did reconnaissance, okay, we then went back to each of the areas and collected data. This is our observation sheet. So what we would do is, we had a handheld GPS unit. We got the longitude and latitude at the beginning of the infestation and the end of the infestation. There were 4 of them. We looked at how dense it was, the cover. We looked at the phenophase, which is the plant lifestyle. It doesn't have leaves, doesn't have fruit, doesn't have flowers. So we described that on each of them. And then we took different notes, like is it by a water well? What are the other plants growing close to it? Anything usually. Did we see plants from the year before? This was the chart we used, and we found density coverage from 1% up to about 20%. And of course, it would kind of, the infestation would be the most, usually kind of in the middle, and they would kind of taper off. Okay, treatment. Okay, this is pretty interesting. The occurrence of puncture vine on the ranch, at least in this area, appears to be fairly recent. And it's not widespread really badly in this area. Okay, PV is puncture vine is best controlled by hand removal or hoeing before the new fruits mature. The soil should be tilled no more than 1 inch deep so that you don't bury seeds. The stem should be cut at the taproot and the entire plant bagged, and then you need to take a rake or a broom and sweep up all the seeds. It's really interesting. There are 2 weevil species that are found in India and Europe, and these were introduced in 1961. They're species specific, and they attack different parts of the plant. One of them attacks the stem, the other one attacks the seeds, and so you use them together, and you can actually go out and collect these in the wild. I mean, they're not hard to find, and it usually takes about 2 years to control the infestation. And then there are both pre-emergent and post-emergent pesticides that can be used. you know, if you have a, I guess, a hideously huge area infestation. Okay. Then you guys want to get involved. It's a lot of fun. And,
That's not good.
no, this is, I don't know what this is. Anyway, this is a place where if you want to find out some more, you might track that down. And that's the end, okay. Do you have any questions what we did? Yeah, so what do you recommend? What does the ranch staff recommend? You know, I mean, personally, it looked to me like in this area, you know, if you had half a dozen people hoeing, and, you know, it'd be best if it wasn't back bands, that taproot.
And you're not suggesting digging up?
You know, 'cause that's why it can compete so well, because they're so deep. I mean, if you went early in the year, you could certainly, come up new ones. That would probably be the best time to go to March, April. I'll certainly get you through pesticides and, you know, polluted creeks and everything else. I don't know, to me, that would be the fast resort. You can't mow it. Pretty much either have to hand do it, or these weevils. I mean, these weevils seem to sound like they're species specific. They overwinter and they'll attack. You know, it's like, I know. This is the first thing I thought of as an introduced species. Yeah. They're supposed to only eat this plant.
By fire with fire.
Yeah, really.
Is that what you call
They're weevils. They're very tiny, maybe like quarter inch long, very tiny. And follow weevils. Like little weevils.
Okay.
And one of them attacks the stem and one of them attacks the seed. So between the two of them, they can.
And farmers in Africa will sell you these weevils.
Last question.
I worked on a school campus that had a very bad problem with goat pests. And the maintenance personnel there said that when they came out and they let them go into the summer and they just spread everywhere. So it seemed like if you dug them out by hand.
It would be, the thing to do would be go to spray.
Like a March Madness.
Yeah.
Do this.
And they jump over, they don't,
Gotcha.
you know, they die in the winter, they can't ski on freezing, so, yes, that would be this spring, get out there, you know, a dozen of us, and,
Take our time.
have a great time. And then there's I guess we're gonna go there tomorrow, it's a real nice place to get lunch up in.
Where's the computer?
Yeah.
There we go.
Any other questions?
Okay, it doesn't want to show up. Thank you.
Okay, see how I did.
So Elias is misbehaving.
No, it was okay.
All right. So thank you, Carrie and Young. Next we have Ted Madison, and he's going to be talking about some educational materials he's working on. So let's see if this will cooperate. This guy here. I'll just copy it over. Ooh, all right.
Good.
Yeah, as soon as this opens up.
Take photos and because I'm an actor, that's what we think about.
Although,
Unless the presentation isn't loading.
doesn't want to open. Alrighty. So you just have it in PowerPoint and
I have it
Keynote.
in Keynote.
I don't know if that's going to open.
What about on somebody's?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there it is.
It's just running a little slow.
Here you go. Maybe take a photo while you're
Sure will.
So I just hit this
Well, it's
button.
running a little. It's lagging a little bit. Yeah. So there's going to be Oh, mercy. Outline view, page read.
Yes.
Slide master. All right, here we go.
Good.
Ready to rock, Ted.
Ready to rock? Okay.
Ted Madison, ladies
Hey.
and gentlemen.
So I hit the thing and it goes. I see it here.
For some reason, it doesn't really seem like it's talking with the printer right now, or the having technology lately. Perennially, actually.
Probably rely on it.
All right, so. Oh, here we go. Now it wants to work. Look at us.
Is that what you wanted?
Here we go. Forward back. It's not showing up on here. I don't know. So that's.
Oh, wait, there you are.
Oh,
Okay.
LA River.
Gotcha.
right. Hey, I'm Ted Madison, and Tracy, you might recognize this area. And this something kind of. So this is my capstone project for the California Naturalist Training. I'm Ted Madison. I'm an actor, director, writer, teacher, producer, from Minnesota, and now live in LA. Theme for people things. Scientific Steve way of saying it, and Scott way. You guys are impressive. Everybody, I'm so impressed with the level of people in here, on everybody, students included. And how am I going to do that? How am I going to get more people to do more natural things? Take a hike with ranger. By the way, all by me for yeah, sure. I took most of these photos, so yeah, go ahead and click away there. So who was Ranger Ted? I took that. The plane was going right over the park. How often do you get that view of Yosemite? I had the big zoom on there too. So who was Ranger Ted? Click away. Well, he's a certified California naturalist. Well, not yet. We'll see how we go here. Keep going. I hope this presentation goes well. And continue.
Yep. It's about a second.
Now, how I got here. I'm from Minnesota. Southern California, water. This is all taken on my lake where I built my cabin. All these photos are from the same spot. That's the Aurora. That's my wife. This is all here. So keep going. And this is just a little bit the loon, our state bird. And I just want to show a little bit of where I came from and how I became baby bald eagle. Right there. And I came to California the Cascade Mountain Circle. I've been to Alaska 7 times. But throughout all this time, as I was taking people on camping trips, there are people up in McGill campsite right now. People start calling me Ranger Ted. And it's now come to this point where I have to actually not be a ranger per se, but I better get some
Naturalist training, yeah.
I better get some credit.
Yeah.
Ranger Ted needs some credit. And so when I was looking for some cred, I just randomly came across the California Naturalist program, and it just all made sense. And I was emailing Scott frantically, and I was telling him about who Ranger Ted is. And so it's a developing business for me too, as I go with the ups and downs of an acting life and having a baby due in December. Ranger Ted is coming to the fore as a more legitimate excursion lead people in the outdoors kind of business, whether it's a simple hike, a family hike, whether it's for a corporate group or what have you. And I've started to do these hikes, and now I'm starting to merge these hikes with the education I'm getting here. That website's up. This one's not up yet. There's Ranger Ted videos on YouTube. And so now, that's the one I didn't.
Oh, gee.
Google Jungle Bridge, you get that. So the challenge is going from informal Ranger Ted to Certified California Naturalist Ranger Ted. And who's here to help me? Well, and focusing on here in this lesson plan for a hike with Ranger Ted are a couple of things. The job of a naturalist to observe, report, and protect, and then thinking about this, grab people, get people to come back. And so that's the crux of what I'm doing now. And so what am I actually going to do? And what I've been doing are leading hikes. Take a hike with Ranger Ted with the learning objectives being simple. Get outside. It's great out here. And this is what a naturalist does. Do it, meaning get outside. Observe it, right? Look around you. Your teacher, your mom, Ranger Ted, whoever, and sharing it. I'm going to talk a little more about that. And then start protecting it, meaning care about it and get involved. We know there are lots of groups you can follow, including Tejon Ranch. And that many balloons together. There's like 6 or 7. So my into on the hike is playing tic-tac-toe. I came up with some to practice tic-tac-toe. I don't care if you're old or young. Here's what we're going to be looking for. And a game, I think, can really get people excited. And everyone loves bingo. Okay, next.
What is that?
With what?
What's that thing in the middle?
Yeah. And these, some of these were deliberately chosen as some are invasive and some are native. Because I was in Franklin Canyon, right in the middle of LA, and you get these big, bad bullfrogs and these, invasive. What are they? The red striper guys? What are these called?
Sliders.
Yeah, the sliders. And so that pretty third grade, fourth grade, they're starting to touch on these terms fairly quickly. And then if I need to sophisticate it up and science it up a little bit, I did a tic-tac-toe. What did Ranger Ted just say? You guys, understory, your flora and fauna. But that's a great, I love using flora and fauna for a 10-year-old. Oh, yeah. So I'm setting up the through with the into, and the bingo is the into. Okay, next. And so the through is the actual hike, and I've done a few of these, and I'm just planning on doing more. These are some of the places I've been doing them. This is I want to get to the point where I feel more confident to do it at Tejon Ranch on a periodic basis. Lead hikes out here. And does that mean I become a docent? That's such a fancy word. It's a weird, outdoorsy
You
word.
need to add that to your title.
I can hardly get that. Because people will read that and they think you got cred.
You can be a decent docent.
Decent docent. That's good. So that's, the through is the event itself. Walking around, noticing things, talking about what we're finding on the bingo card. And all of that is, of course, just creating awareness of the bigger system around you, the big dynamic that's constantly in change system, which is a great thing. I mean, these guys, you start, these are some, I should go back 1 second. This was a great example of the drought here in Franklin Canyon at the reservoir, because that water had been quite a bit higher not that long ago, and those root systems of I think some of the cottonwoods, there were a lot of willow trees down there, so it was great with all this kind of puffy thing going on with the roots, and These guys were loving that, and they're making bullfrog sounds. It was super. Okay. So I did notice on some of my hikes that I gotta keep on task a little bit with the bingo cards and what you're noticing, and not let people sort of. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, trail off a little bit, but then. So that's on me to. Oh my God, 2 minutes. To add, depending on the sophistication of the kids or the length of the hike, add the nature journal thing. Make a nature journal, do it. I need to get better about my nature journal. The card hike, the things, hold on to things, what are you going to find? Okay, something there. Oh yeah, the need a tree thing you told me about, which is, I think is great. And then this resource that you mentioned as well. Okay, next. I think geocaching is really important and a really good into for kids. I know there may be some ecologists and super biologists who may not be super great with it, but I think if you have the right context for it and talk about kids, it's just that surge of a game or a task or treasure hunting, and adults love it too. Next. And the beyond, how do we get people to come back? Always debrief, talk about what you saw, get some swag out, some carabiners and some bandanas. My wife makes those coffee cozies, she knits those things. Enlist participants, enlist people, that's what I'm pretty good at. I'm good at getting people into things. And so have a discussion afterwards and then keep in contact. And I think one of the most important things for especially the young, what's your status? Twitter this and Instagram that. I think it's really important that that stuff has to combine with the education that we're providing. And thank you very much. That was the first time I'd ever seen one of them now. Sounds good. I got one. This is a start. It was a little warm. It was warm today. It was real warm. And I'm going to pass out one thing with Ranger Jenna. And finally, I am camping up in Midgill this weekend, tonight, tomorrow. Tomorrow after you're done with your thing, come up there, hang out, have a drink with us, have the barbecue with us, sit around. No campfire on the 25th. Didn't know it. I guess I should be okay with that. But we'll have the lanterns out and the guitars. I'm just going to have people pass this around. And that's my deal. Thank you.
I could explain. You're thirsty, that's all.
Am I going to what?
Visible and
Probably
powerful.
not going to be visible either, but they're supposed to be visible as far south as San Francisco.
No.
So, a little more. How long have you been?
Well,
Yeah, that's why all of our internet has been messed up.
Most of the last 6 months or so, I've been
You already? No, I said.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Maybe. And when we come back, Steve Justice is going to talk to us about his capstone, which relates with the pronghorn on Tejon Ranch. So stay tuned. Be back at 7:07.
On the back side of that sheet, that's the direction. More than welcome, I'm serious.
My wife, so.
All right, there it goes.
Right. I don't know how I can follow that. That's pretty good. I'm bringing them back in again. Yeah, they're on this desk. Yeah.
Well, let's see. We've got. So we are at. Rick and Ginny are the only other people that have signed up. So if you want to be 7:30.
Okay, that's fine. And then what I have is photos off of what.
Yeah, I've got the video, whatever.
It's not video.
Oh, okay.
I need
The
to.
media player, though.
Yeah, that'll do. And then let's see. I've got a video.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Teresa.
Is this your cruiser in here? Can I pull your cruiser just a little?
That's something like
Scott?
you better check with Scott.
Oh wait, I'll load it a different way.
What happened to
Have you got the on, and it's got a pointer.
I got that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so much easier to just wander around and.
That's the way I feel about it. See how it works.
Hello, Dr. White, how are you? Good.
Well, I'm all used to it, the Mac. Get over here.
We're gonna see it.
Oh,
Let me walk you out and you can see that.
I will be in touch with you too.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah. I lost. I can't find the arrow. Is it up there?
I'm okay with that.
I don't even like that.
Run slowly. Yes. My machine's running.
Yeah, I think it's very limited bandwidth
Yeah.
here, apparently. It's okay, you can go. What? Flip the watch.
There we go.
I want the one that I clicked on, and that came up instead. It's okay. I will.
Yeah, but sometimes if you get fat figures, and you try and pull your pointers and then your screen
These two coopers here.
I wasn't sure what you had in there.
Two coopers up in right now.
Oh, great.
Horned owls, and saw the owls.
So I'll be using another window primarily, so we can just leave that there.
Okay, and hopefully it's got a long way to go to load.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
Yeah, well, there'll be time. There's like a half hour between now and then, so it ought to do something. So let's see if we can. All right. Tree.
Program, but I think we can do that later. What did I just do with it though? Did you see it?
I did not. Do full screen. It was on full screen before. Yeah, I know, but it keeps jumping to extend.
it's right side up, but then when you hang it, you're hanging it upside
There.
down.
So we're looking at pronghorn to give a warm well.
This, I've been interested in antelope, and pronghorn, not called an antelope, they're technically not for an awfully long time in my life, and it's interesting to find that we have a population of them here on the ranch. So I immediately became interested in adding this in this my Capstone project, primarily what I'd like to work on. And I want to give you a little bit of background about the animals, and a little bit of background about what we're trying to accomplish, and then there's a long-term as well as a short-term view of what we can do. There were 91 pronghorn introduced to the ranch in the period of 1985 and 1987. I think there was one group was brought in 1985, a second group was brought in 1987. But ostensibly, they were here to restore the populations into Antelope Valley. However, somewhere along the line, hunting with very, very high fees to go hunting was later introduced, and that, of course, has had some effect on the population in addition to what we've all been observing about the drought and conditions out there. This herd originated from Modoc County. They were trapped up there and transferred down here. And if you look on the maps and you read about Modoc County, you read about the climate, it's there's a lot of similarities, but it's significantly different in their climate profile. What's missing here is the severe winter. We do have very cold periods of time. We do have snow. We do have all those kinds of things, but we don't have the sustained period of cold that you might have. Where I've been around antelope and pronghorn in other areas, they're really remarkable creatures, and I'll tell you a little bit more about their morphology, but they're able to cope with a lot of different varying conditions, and they're uniquely situated to do that. Pronghorn hunting here was halted in 2009 due to extremely low herd numbers. You have to think about what are we hunting normally. And then populations get out of control, and you're worried about their overgrazing and starving across the winter. You may release permits for does, but I think most of the hunting that was done on this ranch was done for hunting trophy bucks. Interestingly enough, there's 2 bands of pronghorns, and we only have 19 or 20 animals in total. But they're banded, they're separated. Where I've been around pronghorn most of my life, they run in very large herds for protection. There's a whole host of reasons they move in large groups, and then when you move into the rut season, they will start to break into bands with a dominant buck, etc. And they'll break apart. These 2 bands, from what I understand so far, they seem to be separated, and that's an interesting phenomenon. I'd like to know more about that. We do know, and I've been told, that the fawn survival rate is very low. And then when you get these herds into this kind of stress that we're in with the drought and the habitat and everything else like that, they're probably going to have limited estrus cycles, or limited cycling. So they're probably not breeding as often as they would have. So now you're continuing to put pressure on that population. Fawn survival is really a crucial thing to increase the numbers. And if you think about it, those little things hit the ground, and they spend. I've actually ridden a horse up to 3 feet to a fawn and not seen it. And I've walked up to them, and you can and it'd be a surprise. They lay very still. They'll lay against rock. They'll lay against any kind of brush, but they need cover to protect themselves. So the first few days, they'll lay very, very quietly. Within a couple of days, they can run faster than you. They still can't compete with coyotes, etc. So there's a lot of reasons why we have a problem here. So the long-term part of this project, or short-term, long-term part of this project, to try to address a lot of those things, to try to increase the survival rate, increase the herd size. So here's a group. You have a buck here, and it is band of does. That's his harem. People refer to it as a harem. And let me give you a few facts. And why would we want to protect these things? Think about this. This is a unique species native only to North America. It's not really a true antelope, but it's in a complete family by itself. It's the fastest animal in North America. It can run up to 58 to 60 miles an hour for a reasonable period of time, like up to half a mile to a mile. But I have seen them run 40 miles an hour for a sustained period of time. They can clock. They can cover ground. There's only one thing between the ground where they want to be and where they are, and that is fences. And we'll focus on those things. So the fastest land mammal is a cheetah. And so why would this thing evolve being able to run 50, 60 miles an hour when the next closest many hundreds of thousands of years ago? So these things evolved in that period of time and left over. here it comes. That's why they have that speed profile. It's the only big game animal with branched horns and not antlers, and I brought the horns. These are sheds. I have a couple of them here. This is what their horn looks like. And it's hollow. They'll shed these every year and regrow them. They have eyesight that's remarkable, and some people say it has 6 to 8x magnifying power, but you cannot sneak up on one of these things. The only thing you can sneak up on them is you've got a hill or a rock or something. If you start to crawl from hundreds and hundreds of yards away, they've already seen you. That's part of their profile, speed and their eyesight. That's what they learned. That's how they defend themselves. They have hollow hair shafts that protect the heat as well as the cold. And here's, if you think about what we've been looking at, we've been talking about overgrazing, all of those things. Here we have this group of animals here, and the fact that one grazing cow, consumes as much food as 38 pronghorns. That's a pretty interesting challenge, isn't it? There's a heck of a lot more cows out there than there are pronghorns. Then they're browsers. Some people call them browsers, and they'll consume things that the cow won't eat. So a lot of times we can say that they can actually improve range during quality.
Do they eat puncture vines?
Well, we can try, but I don't think we do. And here's the real kicker. Fences constructed control cattle and sheep will inhibit pronghorn movement and starvation. So what we're going to do, this is the former rangeland. Most of the animal populations are in these regions. You'll notice that they don't. In 1982, we said, well, they're living in California. They will. Here's something that's really remarkable. This is the key to this. They will not jump a fence. I think I've seen one picture of a pronghorn jumping a fence. They will run head on. I gave them the legs to run. They didn't give them the muscles to jump the fence, apparently. So that's our challenge. We've only got a couple of minutes, but what I want to emphasize here is that what our challenge in dry seasons, when moisture content of vegetation is low or non-existent, pronghorn will travel 5 to 6 miles for water. And typical fencing that we have here is constructed to hold cattle and sheep, and the pronghorn can't get through this. So we've really dramatically restricted it. And here we are in the middle of a really remarkable drought. And fencing at the bottom, it should be, the bottom strand should be no lower than 16 to 18 inches, and 18 to 20 is preferred. So what we're going to do is compare these fences to what we've seen, and so we got a lot of things that we got to get our head around to restore this population, to stabilize it. What we started to do, short-term focus, was on the north-south fences. So we've surveyed the main fence lines. We've gone through their own personal experience and stretches of some improvements. I won't go through those details. I go through this part. So we identified 2 primary targets for conversion at Los Alamos Creek, which we went to the first trip, on the West Valley side, and at the Lewis Gate at the 290th Street, 2 major fence lines right there. And we identified a 3rd fence line for further evaluation. And those areas are noted here on the map on this far west end, and then right here, that 3rd area is right in here. We walked those fences, and we took measurements. 18 to 20 inches is what you want, minimum 16 inches. That's 4 inches. It's a real struggle. That's 8 inches or so. Yeah. And you got this. So what we also noticed, there were some swales or some ravines. And what I've been in other areas, we've been really successful, and one of the things we're going to have to take a look at is whether or not the ranch would allow us to take advantage of this area. Can you imagine if we could run that bottom strung, a smooth strand of wire at this elevation, how many animals can get underneath that fence in a real hurry. If they want to move, that's fine. If they want to get away from something, that's fine. Whatever, we have to get permission. I don't think there's a lot of calving operation going on here. I think they're moving adult cows. I don't think there's a lot of, I don't see any calves. So what do you worry about on a low fence? And ranch, I would think you worry about calves getting underneath, getting on the other side, mom's on this side, and calves over here. That's not going to be a challenge for us, I think. So, and then it was interesting, we found one spot where we actually did have 18 to 20 inches, what was recommended. And guess what we found in every one of those little barbs? Big hair. Because what the pigs were doing was they were blasting underneath the fence, and they were going over here and they're picking up acorns around all those trees. And then, all across our fence surveys, from one end of the property to the other, what we did find was something that's equally heinous, in my mind, is people have improved fencing, and they just dump barbed wire, just rings of barbed wire everywhere. And that's what, you can't see this. My wife complained that she couldn't see the barbed wire. Well, she ever saw some ugly old guy holding it. But there's tons of barbed wire there. We went up to one part in the East Ranch, and there's this whole pasture full of it. So that, you know, those are the types of things. So this is, I know I'm at the end. The second fence line has got the same challenges, and we didn't have a picture of the big ravine, so I reused this picture. So there's two spots on that second line where we can get permission, and we've actually seen antelope. I guess we've seen antelope bunch up against that fence so they can get underneath it. And then there's a whole bunch of tanks on the other side, so there's water movement movement for water that we can accomplish here. So in closing, there's food for thought. And again, I told you this is a short-term as well as a long-term project. But here's what we can do in the short term. But think about this, another reason why we want to do this, besides them being a unique species. There's actually 5 subspecies of pronghorn. The Baja Peninsular species is critically endangered, and then there's a Sonoran species in southern Arizona that carries over across the border to Mexico, but the new closure borders fence isolates those 2 herds. Keep out the illegal aliens, keep out the other pronghorn as well. Those are not green card-carrying pronghorn. So in 2002, there was a drought worse than they had ever reported. And there, the U.S. Sonoran herd population dropped from 140 animals down to only 19. And all heck broke loose. Everybody got on board. It was a dramatic intervention and management, and that was the only thing that saved them from complete loss of that herd. They've now rebounded to 159 animals in this period of time. Well, food for thought. We have 19 to 20 animals in this room. Maybe it's time to intervene. So, thank you.
Definitely important management topics, and we've been thinking about wildlife fence improvements for a while, and it's great to have somebody who can really help us make it happen and be that spark plug instigating these changes that are so important for these wildlife. So thanks again, Steve. So now I would like to call up Rick. And how do you pronounce your last name? I'm sorry. Bisaccia. So Rick Bisaccia, and he's a resident of Ojai. He works with the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, and he's been doing a lot of restoration projects with them. And so he's looking at a particular restoration project on Tejon Ranch. Cool. So
because my last is talk with my
he had to